Everybody, welcome to episode 180 of Fight Chat Friday. So, this episode, again, we're going to be looking from the World Championships and having a look at some more finals again. This time, it's the pre-juniors in the minus 65 kg junior male. And what we're going to look at here is particularly how to make better use of the front leg carry. It's something that features a lot and we see it time and time again, but how can we get better use of this, and also some other lessons around this as well. So let's get right into the fight. It's between Romania and Germany, and right off the bat we have Germany in blue starting off with this front leg carry like we're alluding to, and we're going to have a look at how we can get good use of this. But this was actually a good use of squeezing his opponent to the corner and getting a good return from hands to begin with, Adrian.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we are seeing is, again, this right versus left battle that, we're seeing so often now in finals where, one person's taking their preferred side and the other person's on the opposite leg. And it can change things a little bit, where something might have been working quite well right against right earlier on or left against left. And then all of a sudden you have that opposite legged opponent and it just takes away a little bit of the confidence to follow through, or it opens up different tactical options maybe they aren't ready for. But we can see Romania taking that option of trying to judge the distance and bring the backhand in and doing it to some effect early on.
Yeah, and then he goes to the well again, as we see here. So we're a minute in, and he's kind of found that shot twice. Obviously, he sees the front leg carry coming up a lot from Germany, so he's trying to deal with that problem and not give him the advantage with that shot on its own. We do see a couple of turning kicks as well early on in this particular fight, which are a little bit out of distance and out of range. But at the beginning, there's one of them. But at the beginning, we see Germany is using good front leg carries in terms of gaining ring position, but then that's usually to set up a good entry with hands. But we're not seeing too many shots lead off that front leg carry, particularly with the legs. So we'd like to see in the senior divisions, we see the front leg carry follow up into maybe hacks kicks, into definitive side kicks to the hip and things like that. So we're not seeing that so far from the first three pre-junior fights that we've covered in the last three episodes.
No, it's more just moving the person until there's no choice. It's kind of like, well, I'll steal the space, and if you don't take it back, I'll steal it a little bit more and a little bit more. And eventually, we've kind of like played our game of chicken and we're going to go clash. And it does seem to work like that. Now, what we did see, we've seen a nice effective backhand off of Romania. But what we have seen from Germany is that when the leg does drop and he can get it outside of the front leg, then he's willing to go to hands, and the follow-up can proceed from there. Haven't really seen the nice big turning kick finish that you'd hope to see once you get to hands. But at least clashing more favourably when he can kick, drop on the outside of Romania's lead foot and bring his backhand into play.
Yeah, not sure what the minus point was for there, but obviously that's something now that we've seen. Maybe that puts a little bit of doubt into the opponent's head, but we see a better reaction from Germany on that last entry off the backhand from Romania, and he was able to adapt much better to be able to react. One thing so far from round one, we see some nice backhands from Romania, but no real follow-up, and it allows Germany to kind of actually get back in the game a little bit and cancel that out potentially. So that's something that you could work on going forward.
Yeah, so even if there is more scoring contacts out of Romania, it only takes one kick to offset a couple of those from Germany. And the other thing that seems to happen is because Romania is coming in with a backhand to the body, Germany's hands tend to be to the head and more visible right away. So, it may be getting a more favourable return on the scoreboard than the backhand to the body, which is usually only visible to maybe two judges at most.
Yeah, but so far now we see this match is still quite close. There's only one big score involved in it. The warnings will start to come into play, of course, but I think the foul so far is the big determining factor of where the decision is. And that will bring it much, much closer. But we do see that what you alluded to earlier, the idea of the kicks being more valuable than the hands, for me that seems to be the deciding factor so far with 1:24 to go.
Yeah, I mean, we can see Romania being a little bit sluggish after a couple of knocks there. Still picking the right times more often than not to step through onto the leg, but the movement around the ring is getting a little sloppy and sluggish here, and that is definitely not going to continue well, as Germany seems to stay a little bit more productive and a little sharper in terms of his own footwork.
Yeah, so we always talk about cycles as well, Adrian, and we're seeing that big back leg turning kick coming back into ITF Sparring, and that opens up the potential to people to come through direct off that front hand, and that's a cycle that we've seen earlier on maybe in the early 2000s. So the
Yes.
big back leg turning kick was coming in as a way of coming around the side kick. Now that's returning. We will be interesting to see will the front hand become more decisive just to cut right through that when that option becomes available. We see people are trying to launch in and get the space early with it. I think just it's a little bit of over eagerness, just a little bit of experience there will help these guys be able to pick the shots a little bit cleaner and not just dive in.
I think we're seeing a little bit of decision paralysis as well from Romania, where he's become so fixated on getting that backhand because that was successful in the first round, that he hasn't quite recognised that the well is dry. It's not getting the return from any more than that it might have been early in round one, and he needs another strategy now.
Yeah, and again, credit has to be given here to Germany as well for being able to adapt to that. He got caught with it maybe 2 or 3 times at the start of round one, and then he adapted and was able to have his own hands quite sharp as well for himself to be able to react to that and maybe cancel out at least the clarity of that backhand, because that's where the backhand does give good value. It's a nice clear shot, and the fact it comes from the backhand gives that extra little bit of space, which makes it a clear, visible shot for the referees to be able to score. But then when you react pretty quickly with your own hands as a result of which Germany is right now, that's a good adaptation to be able to cancel out the clarity of it.
Yeah, he's generally going for that higher leg and higher hand. So he's kicking, or he's carrying his front leg from a taller position and bringing the hand straight away in on top. And even if they're not ferociously accurate or effective in terms of knocking the opponent back, it is kind of smothering the visual as well. It's kind of it's not letting the judges see as easily Romania's backhand to the body. So I mean, even us watching it at this level, you're seeing German hands flying over Romanian hands as it goes in. So it does make a big difference to be able to stay tall and carry those hands in above your opponents. Much easier for the referees to see it. And I think the change that he made primarily was trying to follow or stay over that lead leg. Once there's contact, pull the lead leg down to his right hand side outside his opponent's front foot and bring his own hands into play. So even if he's getting timed, even if he's being hit with the backhand, he's still delivering a couple of punches over the top as well.
Yeah, so let's have a look at the stats and see the numbers behind this particular fight. So what we can see right off the bat was a lot of front leg carries from Germany. Didn't really get to much contact with them, but was able to use them to set up hands. Now, in the first round, it actually was becoming a problem because every time he had a front leg carry, it opened up possibilities for Romania to come through on that backhand. So you need to be careful. Is your biggest weapon something that is actually being turned against you? And that was the case in round one, but good adaptation from Germany into round two to be able to make sure that that wasn't the case going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it shows it can be very, very important. You have a game plan. The game plan has to adapt to the circumstances in front of you, and sometimes that's the competitor adapting. Sometimes it's the coach giving a valid suggestion. And we saw that change of strategy, of tactics, small and subtle as it was from Germany, that we didn't see from Romania as the match went on. Very interesting for me again that, and we mentioned this when we were chatting before the match, that we're seeing a far more limited number of techniques being utilised at this pre-junior division, where we know when you see these guys training on the pads, they can throw an awful lot. They have more options available to them, but they're really coming down to those simple things of carry hands and throw a turning kick. And that has been for the most part what we've seen from the pre-junior fights we've watched so far.
Yeah, I think that's a big factor as well of these guys having less time actually having hours of live interaction in sparring just because they're simply younger. So they don't have that same experience that, for example, a senior would, who may have 5 or 6 years of more time in this live back and forth under their belt. So that's a big factor as well, of course. Here we see the contacts made, a very, very high number from Germany, but a lot of them were just to get that front leg going, to take a little bit of space back, and no real intention or threat behind it for the most part. One thing that I would like to see, Adrian, as well, from the pre-juniors so far, from the 3 fights we did look at, is a little bit more use of a direct side kick. We see a couple of attempts using this fight, and it was actually quite good. So if you can mix up that front leg carry with a direct side kick at the end of it, I think it could be something that is going to be much more beneficial for people here. But overall, we can see the contact rate 54%. That is coming because a little bit lower attempted rate from Romania overall, and particularly off the hands. So although he has a very good percentage with the contact rate, he's mostly getting them with the hands, which are not as valuable scores with the single point we have in our ITF rules.
Yeah, and again, no differences in terms of the warnings. The foul was impactful, I suppose, for Romania there as well. And definitely kind of doubling down on what you've said there, if the front leg lifts are more threatening, that will definitely benefit them in the long run, where what we're probably seeing at the moment is respecting the lift of the front leg just because it's probably a good idea to do that, and not reflecting that, okay, maybe there isn't a threat there at the moment off of this one.
Yeah, we did talk about as well last time about the particularly because these guys were smaller last week, that there wasn't an opportunity to maybe squeeze to get some exits. But these guys a little bit taller, definitely rangy, but weren't able to maximize the exits. And I think that's something that we've seen now in the pre-junior so far. That if anybody is able to kind of take the reins on that and press their advantage with exits, it can be a big factor for them.
This is a very interesting statistic here in terms of the first in, last in contact statistic. So 18 exchanges, which is quite a few, but Germany being much more often the one to finish the exchange, and I think that is definitely something that has shown on the scoreboard, that even though we have the decision flipping several times, even though Romania is often the first person to initiate, so 50-50, they're initiating half the exchanges each. But Germany is far more often the one to finish it. It's very, very interesting.
Massive stat. Yeah, I think that's the determining factor of this fight. You have to be the last one out as well. If you're first into contact, that's great. But generally, the person is going to continue on and try match you in this next part of the exchange. And then the person who comes out of contact with that last big exclamation point, I think that's a big, big factor. And we can see Germany got a return of 9 of these here in this particular fight, which was a big, big factor for him, I think, taking the win.
Okay, so we tend to give the advantage on the full triad of control to Germany in this one, and even though the ring control wasn't particularly decisive for either person, and you might say that early on Romania had the advantage in terms of the distance and was getting the right distance and the leg carries to bring the backhand into play. Overall, on balance, Salame from Germany definitely taking a slight edge on ring control and distance, and a definite edge in terms of the tempo or intensity. And maybe that is the one advantage that the high number of carries did have, in that it let him kind of dictate to some degree the tempo or intensity of the fight. Just not as much in terms of the carry through into pushing the person out of the ring or taking advantage of the ring position the way that we might like to see.
Yeah, so a couple of takeaways from this one. The distance on the turning kick and the placement, a little bit over eager at times and maybe biting on opportunities that aren't really available. So if we can kind of work on the precision of these turning kicks, I think it's going to be a big, big factor. And we said that might potentially play into people bringing back that front hand directly coming through with that Superman type of punch to quickly close down the distance directly A to B. Good use of the backhand at times from Romania. We can see that a little bit fell into the opposite position for him on the second round, unfortunately, due to a good change of play from Germany. Carry is not used to follow up particularly well by any fighter. Not many carries used by Germany in this one. I think potentially from what we've seen with the doctor stoppages, etc., he might be carrying an injury with the foot, which may allude to the reason why he was so hands
Romania
dominant.
rather than Germany.
Yeah, sorry, Romania.
Yeah.
Return to the well, that was a big factor for backhand. We always say about that, if something works, try it again. But then you quickly need to adjust if it's not working. And I think that was something that we can take away from this fight and learn from this fight. The backhand was working well at the start of the first round and then not really well after that. So you need to have something that you can return to and go back to as your backup plan or your plan B. Single shots won't do it at this level. We found that out now. You must be last out as well as first in. And that's a big, big takeaway from this particular fight. And the adjustment by Germany to the backhand was very, very effective. So he was getting caught with it in the start of round 1 and he adapted pretty well. So that's very, very important. You need to have that ability to adapt. That's very important in these short rounds of 2 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose it's worth saying as well that in a lot of countries for these pre-juniors, they're not used to having to do a tournament at 2 by 2 minute rounds. I mean, certainly, for a lot of them, they'll have just come up from maybe the younger junior or whatever it's called in your country, that maybe they're only doing 2 1.5s or 1 2 minute round or something like that. So even the experience of going to a coach to change the plan in the middle might be something that isn't as practiced as it is going to be after several years of sparring at this older age group.
Yeah, so good final and congratulations to Germany. Be interesting to see if he can push on out into the junior ranks and do some good things there. But again, we're seeing a lot of good potential coming from these pre-juniors and a lot of areas they can work on again that we can see them to move forward even to a higher level going forward.
Excellent. All right, folks, that's us for this week. We'll see you in the next one.